All About Android is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Welcome to All About Android, episode 453, recorded on Tuesday, December 10th, for Tuesday, December 31st, 2019. That's right, New Year's Eve. We are your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell. I'm sitting here kind of my lonesome. Well, Victor's behind the board, running the board, so I don't feel totally alone, Victor. Thank you for being here with me. It is New Year's Eve, so we are not recording any live shows today. We're celebrating, hopefully drinking champagne and ringing in the new year. But this is the perfect time to finally show to all of you our best of 2019. I love this episode each and every year. I've always said, like, the way I like to approach these best ofs is to create an episode that, like, years and years and years down the line, when I want to remember, like, that time that I did All About Android, which, don't get me wrong, I'm sure we'll be doing All About Android for the next 50 years. But if that doesn't happen, at least I have these best ofs for myself and a totally, like, selfish, for totally selfish reasons. At least I have this best of to remember this particular year of the show. So that's kind of how I approach, like, pulling moments for these best ofs. Some years better than others, and some years I pulled far too many, and I every time I think about it, I feel badly for Victor because he's the one that bore the brunt of all of that hard work. So thank you for sweating bullets through all of that. This year, not as many moments, but I picked some really good ones. Victor edited it all together. So we're going to start off with something that we do each and every year. We're going to take a look back throughout this year, 2019, on All About Android, and start with a clip where we wonder what we've done so many other times on this show. What is the dessert for the next version of Android? And with Q, we realized it's never very obvious. And that's the first clip we'll watch right now. Ricky Damasceno, I'm probably mispronouncing your last name, on Twitter said, "Hey everyone, I'm a Brazilian living in the UK and it's kind of hard to watch you guys live, but I catch up on CastBox as soon as I can. Just wanted to point out that I love the idea of Android Kingdom." Haha, the correct pronunciation is Kingdom. So I'll just spell it out because it's kind of hard to know what he's talking about. We're always positing what the heck is going to be Android Q because it really doesn't make any sense. Quindim. Kingdom. He says. Kingdom. So Android Kingdom. Could be. He says, by the way, delicious. I'm willing to try it. Sure. Jason, another fan, wrote in to say, I know you guys have been bantering around some questions or some guesses about the Q name that Google might come up with pretty soon. Well, I would like to propose Quasar for the name. Quasar is a fantastic candy bar from Trader Joe's. That would be an interesting partnership.
This is the Milky Way knockoff.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Quasar is a balance of milk and dark chocolate flavors and thick, stretchy caramel.
Yeah,
it is a
nugget.
fantastic candy bar.
Yeah, so this is
Quasar.
the Milky Way wannabe.
Okay. That would be an interesting Trader Joe's collaboration with Google for a version of Android. I don't see that one happening. But
I'm just glad it's not a Quest bar. I'm sorry.
Not what?
A Quest
Those are
bar,
awful.
one of those protein workout
Those
bars.
are awful. They taste like a powdered brick. Like you bite into them and they just crumble in your mouth. It's
Quest
just
bar.
protein bars don't have to be bad,
would-
people.
Yeah.
That's
It
true.
would just be depressing if it was a Quest bar.
Like Android's bulking up.
Oh my God,
Android's
that would be
getting-
the cutest
Android's
little Android
getting
figurine.
swole.
A little Android figurine, yeah, with little like muscles. I mean,
Yes.
a little Hulk droid. Oh. I like
okay.
imagining it.
All right. Well, we've got more. Who the heck knows where this is going to land? It's probably going to be a while before we know. We'll continue to try and find, because I feel like if we keep digging, we will find the obvious one and be like, there it is.
I think
Or
it's
maybe
just
we
going to
won't.
be Q. I think it's just going to be Q.
Oh.
Yeah.
Guess we'll find out. Roid Droid, says Burke. Roid Droid. Oh, boy. That's where it would head.
So if it's just Q, would it be good to have a James Bond tie-in?
Possibly. But that's not a tasty treat. Like, I think at that point, not as far as I know anyway.
It's not a tasty treat.
You guys, it's not tasty.
But it's cool tech related.
Yeah, James Bond is not.
I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that question.
I mean, he's handsome,
It's
but
only
he's
going to go
not-
downhill from here.
Yeah.
Matt C. left us a voicemail, and I think we've talked a little bit about this in prior shows, but I wanted to resurface this because I want to see what everyone thinks, having given it some time. So take it away, Matt.
Hello, All About Android crew. This is Matt from Louisville, Kentucky. Regarding the name of Android Q, I had a revelation recently. Looking at the logo for Q, you've probably noticed it looks an awful lot like a 10. What if they stopped with the dessert naming with pie, and from this point on, it's a perfect time to situate that 1 and that 0 and say, we present to you Android 10. And then there's no dessert affiliated with it. They don't have to mess with figuring out what the next letters are going to be and what dessert it's going to be. Instead, it will be Android 11, Android 12, and be able to move on, because in a few short years, they will have reached Z, and then what do? So,
I don't know.
just a thought.
AA.
I would
It's
not
a great
be
idea, to be
surprised
honest.
if
AB.
the reveal
AC.
ends up being a number instead of a dessert. Thanks. Love the show.
Okay, so Matt, thank you for the voicemail.
That was awesome. That was awesome,
distinctly
Matt.
remember us talking about this very briefly.
We didn't talk.
Mind blown.
We didn't talk. Yeah,
Same.
totally mind blown. We didn't talk about the logo, but we did speculate that given how hard it was to find a dessert that was Q, what if they just called it Android 10? Yada yada.
Okay,
Didn't
I couldn't
think
remember
about
if
the
we
logo
did.
The
itself.
logo, yeah.
I could have swore we brought that up too, but maybe we didn't. But yeah, put that logo back on the screen.
The logo is a 1 inside of a 0.
Like,
It
I
totally
mean,
is. Once you see it, you can't not see it.
yeah, like why would the Q do, like, why would any normal
my
Q do
gosh.
that?
or is
You know
it
what I
an
mean?
L
is a
inside of 0?
And also,
It's a
if you-
one with a hat.
Also,
Yeah.
if you squint your eyes at it, you can see a boat.
That's right.
Like those magic eye
Okay.
things. No.
Yes, right.
No, but-
Cross your
I never
eyes.
could do
and
those.
it's
Exactly.
I never
in
was good
3
at those.
dimensions.
Yeah.
No, it's a schooner. No, anyway, but no, that is clearly a 1 and a 0, and they're going to do an animation and announce Android 10. I think that's 100%.
The one will swoop over, and it's like, you may have been wondering what we were going to name it this year. We were wondering that too. We've decided it's the perfect time for Android 10.
But I'm not getting any candy at
There we
at
go.
Google I/O.
There it
I want,
is.
oh,
Victor.
okay.
Yeah, you could. I
pretty
can
good.
visualize the animation of that 1 and the
Yeah, me
0
too.
like swooping over to the side slowly.
Yeah.
In a perfectly put together PowerPoint for the keynote.
Yes.
So let's
Excuse me,
let's-
Google
Would
whatever
it be
the.
Google OS 10?
So
The what?
Google OS 10.
well, because that's the other question is that what is the future of the term Android?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Hey.
You know, like that has been speculated that they're going to drop. I mean, they kind of have. It's the Google Pixel.
Yeah.
They don't talk about it that much. Like, is this going to be a departure from even Android? I mean, we're screwed if that happens.
Yeah, same. I think a lot of us are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll have to. Yes.
All about fuchsia.
all about pivot.
Yeah.
All about
But let's-
Google stuff.
Let's note though, on April 30th, a week before Google I/O, thanks to Matt C who called in, we are going to predict officially that it's not Android any sort of dessert. It'll be Android 10.
And we it's not like they'll announce this at Google I/O, right? Like this is the kind of thing they leave for later. I don't know that they do this.
Yeah,
at
well,
Google
last year
I/O.
they had that like moon, like solar eclipse thing. You
At
know, where,
Google I/O.
no, they had it like randomly in Mountain View.
Oh yes, right.
Yeah, they like invited everyone out, and it was like a 5-minute event. They just
Oh,
did the
boy.
little animation, and they were
Oh
like,
yeah, that's right.
"It's
They invited everyone
Oreo."
out and like just to unveil the statue because the
Yeah.
statue is like when the name. So then, if it's Android 10, what are we gonna have for a statue?
The 10, just the 10 logo.
I mean, the pie was just an Android guy holding a piece of pie, which I was severely disappointed about, by the way, because like
Yeah.
they totally could have made him in a pie costume. It was not that
Rightfully
hard.
so.
Dude, exactly.
It was really not that hard. Like, you know, I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
I was upset.
Key lime pie.
Yeah, key lime pie.
Because it's green.
I don't know. Looking at the logo, because we have it as part of our
him
lower
eating a
third
pie.
day, him eating a pie. It does look like a nice pie, though.
It does look. It's like a cherry pie.
Yeah.
But he could have been a pie. I'm just saying, like he could have been a key lime pie. Like would have been easy.
Google, you're so lazy. I mean,
seriously,
every guy could have been a pie.
Yeah, I was sad.
Yeah. All right. What will we eat, by the way, if it's no longer food? I don't even know. We'll eat the letter 10.
We'll eat all the things that start with Q, because it's been a really curious journey to figure out the different desserts and so many international desserts. Like I feel like we need to expand our minds and, look at other cultures. Look
outside of our bubble.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good point. Talk about Powerhouse by Samsung. How about this? Samsung led the entire announcement with the announcement of the Galaxy Fold. So that is the real name. Starts at $1,980. So they called it a luxury phone. They said it specifically. This is a luxury device. It's going to release on April 26th. I know that we're going to be getting one here in some way, shape, or form to review. Leo has talked a lot about that already, so we will have one to show off at some point. A 4.6-inch outer display and then a 7.3-inch inner display when it's fully unfolded. 512 gigs of storage, side fingerprint sensor, 3 cameras on the back, 2 on the inside, 1 on the front, 2 batteries inside, totaling 4,380 milliamp hours. So decent amount of battery, although for whatever reason I would have expected maybe a little bit more if you're splitting it across 2 batteries. But then at the same time, it's all about bulk too. When you've got 2 screens and you're doing folding, it's already going to be a bulky device. So you want to cut that down somehow. And Michael, you actually wrote that Samsung wants you to love it, but they don't want you to buy it. Explain. What do you mean by that?
The day afterwards, I wrote up my thoughts on it, as many people have. Obviously, that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what Samsung is trying to do here is basically create the tentpole, the flagship, the thing that everybody thinks of when they think of the Samsung brand. This is going to be the first thing, and maybe even the last thing too, you see in their commercials over the next 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
As they're just showing off how cool Samsung is, how cool their tech is. And I'm not the only one who's made this connection, but it's a lot like going into a car dealership and seeing their super fast supercar. You go into a Ford and you see the Ford GT. You go into a Dodge dealership, you see the Dodge Viper, even though they know you're going to drive away with the Mustang or the Challenger or the Charger, something like that.
Or Focus.
Or I guess in
something more
Samsung's
reasonable
terms, that would be like a $300 phone. This is your folding stuff is cool, but I've got to make rent at the end of the month. I can't spend my entire salary on this really cool piece of tech.
Yeah. So
there's a couple different ways this could go from Samsung's perspective if they fill everything that they make, and I don't think they're going to make maybe 1/10, maybe 1/5 of the amount of Galaxy Folds that they do for the Galaxy S10 line.
Oh, yeah.
If they sell through all of that right away, even at this huge price, then they're going, all right, people want this tech. We have to make it cheaper. We have to get it in more hands. If they don't, which is also a possibility, Samsung still gets that mind space, that thinking about this really cool tech that you can only get from them, although it's not only from them.
Well, that's true.
As we'll find out soon.
As we will find out soon enough. So this was the first of the big, foldable kind of concepts, and this is more than a concept, but this kind of kicked off the Mobile World Congress foldable thing. On the outset, I think I was pretty impressed when I saw Samsung show this off from the stage. In comparison with some of the other things that we've seen since then, though, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, Samsung, it's not a bad device, but there are other companies that are doing things that are maybe even a little bit more compelling.
It's not a great device. It's not a bad device. I think Michael nailed it in that Samsung released this because the wave of foldable phones is coming. We know it's coming, right? I've been talking about it for how long? 2 years now, right?
Yeah.
if we go back to earlier episodes, I predicted that it's really not going to be mainstream or really in the hands of consumers in a widespread manner until 2020 or so. That's how long it's going to take for the price point on the displays to come down, for the supply chains to get in place and all stuff like that. So we're a year at best, realistically, probably a year and a half, 2 years away from it being a realistic price point. We did say that it would probably be between $1,500 and $2,000, and so Samsung coming in closer to $2,000 is right on the mark. They're going to be more aspirational. They're going to be more, more pricey.
That was higher than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was. Oh no,
I'm not surprised at all. This is right in line with what I thought. But that said, for $2,000, make the whole front screen the display.
Yeah.
Like I saw this and I was like, so it's the color Yoda phone?
Yeah. Right.
And it was cool.
I like that phone.
The Yoda phone was great. And for those who don't remember, the Yoda phone was the phone with a e-ink display on the back panel. So on your phone, you had a regular display, and then the back was a e-ink display where you had another display going. And what Samsung did with the front, with that 4-inch screen on the front side of it, it kind of seemed a little chintzy to me. Yeah. And it was neat that it picks up. You saw in the demo and the video saw that you're on Google Maps and you fold it and you're on the same screen you're on when it's unfolded. So it gives you that kind of consistency. It's not a completely separate display, but 4 inches is not a lot of room, and that doesn't give you a lot to do there. This is purely so that Samsung can say, hey, we were first to market with a foldable phone. Remember us. And then down the road when they roll out the one that's closer to the Huawei Mate X, which I'm actually really excited about. We'll talk in a second. Then they can be like, oh yeah, well that was our, this was our proof of concept. Now this is the real phone we're giving you that folds.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a proof of concept that you can buy for $2,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And Michael, I think your point is right too. Is that they're also measuring demand based off of how many people actually buy this to see do people actually want this or not. And I bet you when we get this, if we ever hear sales numbers on these, you'll be surprised. I think they will move a lot more units than we would think because people want. It's been so long since we've had something new and different and innovative in phones that enough people that have enough money to spend will be like, yeah, I'll do that because I want to have the new shiny cool thing.
I mean, it does look cool. I would sport this.
I mean, we over the weekend I showed the video to I had family over who are normals, not like us, and they were all like, "Whoa, this is really interesting!" Like it was enough to turn heads. Yeah,
interesting. Well, why don't we talk about
some concerns with that hinge?
Thank you for mentioning that because that when it's folding in, it requires a little bit of like a gap. And then, of course, the hinge, the mechanics of the hinge, this is going to be a standard like consideration on all foldable phones, at least with the technology that we've seen from the World Congress, right? Is how many unfolds and folds can the hinge actually withstand over time?
And where do phones live? They live in pockets and bags and tables, and they get dusty and craft, and it won't take many times for particles to get inside that nice smooth gliding mechanism.
Just think about
and how
oils
long until it's not.
And makeup.
Oh boy.
Oils and makeup that come off the face. It's gross.
Yeah.
This is not your mother's folding phone, I think.
No, but I think my mother would go crazy over this phone. I think she'd like it. She loves the Note.
Does she like the slotch? That's the name we've given the slot notch up in the top corner.
The slotch.
The slotch. I like it.
I love it.
I don't know. I'm into it.
The slotch. Early title contender.
Well, let's move on to devices that probably actually exist at this point in time. So we've been hearing a lot about these mid-range Pixels that are supposed to be coming out this year and floating around. Well, guess what? Friends at 9 to 5 Google, they've got some deets. They've got some deets for you on the quote-unquote Pixel 3a. So just let that sink in for a minute.
Oh, that's a sexy
when your friend
name.
asks you, hey, what's that phone you got? And you go, hey, GF, girlfriend, this is the Pixel 3a. Apparently it's got a 5.6-inch OLED screen with a resolution, with a very high resolution, let's just put it that way, 440 DPI, Snapdragon 670, so that's a mid-range processor inside, 4 gigs of RAM, so it's the same as your standard old Pixel, 8 megapixel front-facing camera, 12 megapixel rear-facing camera, a 3,000 milliamp battery. But then there's also the Pixel 3a XL, which just has a lot of syllables, a lot of syllables going on in there. So 6-inch display, much bigger. It comes in a clearly white color, just black color, and a third color option, which I'm assuming is just floating around out there. Likely to launch this spring on Verizon, which, as we know, was a big Pixel supporter from the beginning. And I'm assuming because it's the biggest carrier in the US, of course, Google is going to continue to align themselves with Big Red. If you are curious and to just hear a little bit more about this mid-range Pixel, this phone that is supposed to appear out of the ether in this spring season, you can actually go follow friend of the show Stephen Hall from at 9 to 5 Google. So apparently, according to a tweet, he's got some access to a Pixel 3a. So there's a Twitter thread out there. You can go delve in and see if there's anything in there that just sparks your fancy.
Yes.
I don't know. Mid-range Pixel.
Spark joy.
I'm all for a mid-range Pixel. If getting a mid-range Pixel means we have to call it the 3A, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
3A.
Oh, you like the 3A?
No, I like the idea of a mid-range Pixel.
Why?
Call it whatever you will.
So to me, they like Google releases a Pixel and then they blow out the price in 6 to 7 months and they're selling it at the same price that you would get a mid-range Pixel for. I don't understand why they feel the need to release this, but I will say from now on, I'm calling the 3A XL the Pixel 3 Axle.
Oh yeah. Sure. Heck yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Sounds way cooler.
You just boosted that phone, I think, a little bit.
And every time it rings, the ringtone is November Rain.
It's just Axl Rose going.
Just stock out of the box in the cold November rain.
Jason, your Axl Rose impersonation was just spot on right there. That was so good.
Good. I've had a lot of practice. Thank you for noticing.
I'm sorry. I should have presented that correctly. The greatest song of the 90s, November Rain. So.
I'm still tired of that song from 95 or whenever it was released. Still sick of it to this day.
Dude, I will never get tired of that song. That song is amazing.
Oh, no, dude, yeah, it is. It really is. I'll give you that.
Lucky for you, it's the default ringtone on the Pixel 3 Axle. So
Pixel 3 Axle.
the ringtone is Axel going, "Hi, yeah." That's the ringtone. So that won't get annoying at all.
It's the chorus from Michelle. Wow, my Michelle. Sorry. All right.
Man.
I love Guns N' Roses.
I deliberately set this up because I knew I was going to be on All About Android. If you go to the wide-angle shots, this is the Champs-Élysées in Paris. This is where near where the Huawei P30 series launch was. And it's a wide-angle shot of this amazingly busy and complicated roundabout with a very ornate center. As you can see, nice dynamic range, nice shot. If you go to the next one, you'll see one-time optical zoom, so no magnification, no zoom. Still very good detail. The moving cars get captured well. Moving on to the next shot, you may not notice it here, but I've put a little special thing in there. A lot of detail here. You can actually see the marble, the dirt on the marble. And that's 5 times optical zoom coming out of that periscope camera. And if you go to the next shot, you'll probably see it here, but this is a detail of people there. And in the last shot, at 50 times optical zoom, I masterfully placed a banana for scale.
Banana for scale, which is...
Oh, jeez.
Applause, sir. Applause.
Well done. You went very far for that one. Thank you.
Literally, he went so far.
So far, 50 times far.
So, yeah.
I estimate that this took me around about 2 kilometers of walking to do, because that's an amazingly complicated roundabout. And to get the Champs-Élysées, the Arc de Triomphe on Champs-Élysées at the right angle, in the right sun, it took a lot of walking through tunnels and around the
no
square.
One took the banana, surprisingly.
Yeah. I went and took that banana back.
Oh.
It's your banana.
it's my banana, and I reused it in the following shot and then ate it. So later I have another
multi-use
example
banana.
You do what you got to do with the banana. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, banana efficiency. So this is a wide-angle shot of a lovely park in Paris, not far from the Arc de Triomphe that we were looking at earlier. Nice urban setup, lots of detail in this wide-angle shot. The dynamic range, again, is quite good considering the sky was bright and it was a little bit dark in the park. The zoom at 1x optical is obviously closer to a normal shot, but still a very good camera shot. Zooming into 5x, you can see a statue. Lots of detail there from the 5x optical zoom, from something that was just a mere detail in the wide-angle shot lens. And zooming into 10x optical zoom, you'll see the statues there, and if you're looking very carefully, you can see the banana for scale. And last one, the 50x optical zoom, you can see the banana sitting on the statue.
Resting on the statue.
Before.
Ready to be eaten.
Yes.
Giving you a clear indication of how large the statue is.
So these photos, all bananas aside, these photos look really good. And like the zoom is like, you're not going to use a 50x zoom and expect it to look amazing, which it doesn't. But the fact that it can jump in that far, it's striking. Like in
a phone
variety.
that size. Yeah.
In a phone that
size.
size.
It shows how far we've come.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Huawei have really thrown it out of the ballpark with this camera setup. The optical image stabilization is excellent, even at 5x optical zoom. You don't have much shake. 50x digital zoom, that's where it's really difficult to focus on an object. It becomes quite a challenge there. But I would say overall, I'm blown away by this camera. Not only that, overall, it's a great smartphone. It feels really nice to hold, as well as looking gorgeous with that breathing crystal color.
Definitely turning Google I/O more into a hardware announcement.
That's weird because
because they were really backing away from that.
Yeah, everyone every year is always like, are they going to announce the new Pixel? Are they going to announce new hardware at I/O? And everyone says no, because they
don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's like WWDC. It's a month before. It's a software event. Like
they don't announce hardware at Google I/O like they once did.
Yes.
Relic.
Blast from the past.
The Nexus.
The
Relic.
Skydive
so
for that
good.
one?
What's that?
Wasn't the skydiving Google I/O?
Was the skydiving Google I/O the one with Google Glass?
Yes.
Oh, you're right.
Yes.
Oh, I get them all muddled together.
So the skydiving one, the one with Google Glass?
The skydiving one was with Google Glass, but I'm pretty sure that was the same one as the Nexus Q because I went to that one and I have a Nexus Q. And and that was the first time we saw the glass in use with those weirdo skydiving. And also that was at the Moscone Center, let me tell you. Crazy things happen in San Francisco.
Yeah. Oh, yes, totally. Once they went to Shoreline, things got really boring.
Yeah.
They also, if you remember, at Google I/O announced this piece of hardware.
Yeah. I remember.
Cardboard.
They ran out of that. I wasn't even able to get one.
Let's see if I can
remember.
That
was fun and exciting at the time.
You go
it was.
That.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Right.
To go back to
no
the Nexus,
idea what was to come.
To go back to the Nexus Q, by the way, if you want a Nexus Q, they're available on eBay for about $130, mint in the box.
Oh, and here I was thinking they become total collector's items.
They are. It says,
$130. That's the collector's item.
I guess
rare Google item. So there it is.
What about the Nexus 7? This is the Google I/O.
Oh, RIP.
Yeah.
Although it's more the second gen one that's RIP.
Yeah,
I love that.
This is RIP because it has a crack in the bottom. Because
I love the second gen. It had that nice soft touch back. It was so
is this
good.
the second gen or the first gen?
It's the first gen.
This is the first gen.
This is the first gen, right?
Yeah, it's a harder plastic.
And it definitely an I/O edition because it was the white back.
Yeah.
And what else do I have?
So cool.
Sorry, I got inspired right before the show. I was like, this is a return to hardware. And then, of course, the Nexus 5, which I don't think they didn't announce this the Nexus 5 at Google I/O, but this was definitely a
they announced it
giveaway.
in the fall
Yeah, it was a
of
giveaway.
2012.
Definitely a giveaway in 2013, I think.
By the way, Jason, when you refer to the Nexus 5, please refer to it appropriately as the greatest Android phone of all time, the first entrance in the All About Android Hall of Fame, the Nexus 5.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry,
They still use
Rod.
in app developer screenshots, by the way. They still use that silhouette.
Yeah. A friend of mine used the Nexus 5 until about a month ago when his battery just stopped working.
Wow, it just stopped working.
Yeah.
Right until the very end.
Yeah. I also almost bought one of those in college just with my own money because I wanted it so bad.
Here, you want to wear one for the rest of the show? No,
I don't know about the rest of the show, but I'll try it on.
The battery is most definitely not charged in that Google Glass.
Well, it wouldn't do much anyway.
No, you're right. It wouldn't. But you could take a picture with it. A very substandard picture.
$1,000 for this. That's crazy.
More, $1,500.
Yeah, $1,500.
Hey,
$1,500,
that was
right?
cutthroat at the time, okay?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
High tech.
That was like 7 years ago. Technology has really changed in the last 7 years. Has shrunk.
Yeah,
that's
it
true.
really has. I really like.
I mean,
the idea
that
of a
Nexus Q,
wearing the
all that
glass.
stuff is inside a little hockey puck shaped device now that you just plug into your HDMI port in the back of your TV.
Yep, that is so true. Although you don't get the amplifier and your analog speaker outputs.
I know, but everything is sound bars now. You don't need.
Oh, totally.
You don't need all those anymore.
You didn't need these then. No one was.
no one really knew those.
I know those were such a question mark. That was crazy.
Anyways, walk down Google hardware memory lane there. I'm excited to get back to it. I gotta say, I'm interested to hear what they have to say. Okay, so I
was going to say Ron is irreplaceable, but okay.
Ron gave me an app that is really difficult to explain. Thankfully, Ron explained it for me, so I'm going to go ahead and launch it. It's called Kids. It is $2.99. It's loading right now. And I will say that I was playing around with it a little bit earlier, and it's its own kind of experience. It really it's hard to even know or make sense of it. So here's what Ron wrote.
Whoa.
Kids is an experience, minimalist design combined with subtle storytelling. So, and I'm just going to insert my own little things in here. Things will appear on the screen and you got to interact with them, but you aren't quite sure how to interact with them and you just kind of got to play around with it. You can control the kids by tapping on them, and sometimes they go in one direction. Sometimes you can change their direction. Basically, with each scene, you're progressing to the next one by moving the kids along, either with the flow or against the flow. It really has to be seen to be believed. And you can see it now. Do you believe it? So here it is. You got to go through the tube, which is a little weird. Go ahead and flop through this tube here to where I'm not really quite sure. Apparently we've got more kids to flop through these tubes.
Oh, that's...
All right.
Get
down there, kids. Come on.
What is happening?
Yeah, that's basically this game in a nutshell. What is happening? It's a lot of this. You don't really know what it all leads to. You just know that there's kids that appear on the screen and you've got to do stuff.
I wonder about these apps sometimes.
It's kind of, this level is a little floppy.
Should you be sober while doing this? I don't know.
I think this might be enhanced if you were.
Yeah, I think it would be enhanced as well.
Come on, get down there. Get down there.
I like your use of the terminology enhanced, by the way. I'm going to have to steal that from you.
I think Ron is going to have to actually carry the podium out for us to stand on it, because he's clearly not going to stand on it.
I don't want to do this, but I have to. Oh.
What is happening? I'm so disturbed.
Peristalsis is what they call that.
Okay, so now I've got to pull him out of the ceiling.
What?
Yeah, this is basically you're watching an acid trip.
This is an existential acid trip. That's what's happening. Who am I? Is it me or is it all these other me's?
Yeah, there's
all these. Oh no! It has existential sounds too. Just it's like ASMR.
It is really. Sounds. It is. It kind of is.
This is when someone has had some really interesting weed.
Okay, and so then.
Holy moly. No, you. No, you. No. Oh,
no,
wow.
you. I don't know who's going to do it. This game is called Kids. And it's exhausting.
It's all about your inner child. That's what this is. I'm telling you. This is a really deep app that Ron brought.
Deep how?
I mean, think about it. These are all your inner selves that are struggling with one another. And they're trying to find a way to unify. And that's what this whole story is about. See, it's so psychological.
Oh, I figured it out. I figured it out on this one. I keep tapping the same one, and they all point at him. So now we know who you is. Next level. All right, this is what you get. It's just crazy. It's called Kids, and I curse Ron for discovering it because I wish I had. $2.99.
Support your devs.
And it is really weird.
Even if
all
they're
right,
weird.
Ron, fine. I really wanted to sabotage your game
that was
or whatever
entertaining.
it is, but I can't because it's very unique.
That was really entertaining.
That was one of the best laughs of the night, though, for real.
See, it's all about your inner selves, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I should write an essay about this.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot to be said about that app.
I take Android news really seriously, so here's Android news. Right, meow.
Right, meow. Nice. Very nice.
I would have leveraged the messaging bit because I feel like that's the real pertinent Android news. Because when I saw this news, I screamed.
You screamed.
I screamed.
You were like, ah!
I scream. You scream. We all scream for RCS.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll actually experience it
I taught my
wide
friend
degree.
that it existed the other day.
Yeah.
That was an interesting conversation.
Google is apparently rejiggering its messaging approach just one more time. We promise. So get ready for that. The Verge revealed that Google plans to run RCS itself without relying on carriers like its plan last year hinged upon.
I don't need you.
And, they were kind of waiting for carriers to kind of get on board with this universal profile that would make it interoperable between them. And it's been really slow going. It hasn't happened. So now Google plans to push their own version of RCS out via the Google Messages app, which is kind of the conduit that they've been using so far. And they will hand over RCS control to carriers as they get theirs up and running. So this is kind of, from what I understand anyways, kind of an interim step. Google Messages will in turn work with all of these different flavors of RCS eventually, including obviously its own. And it's going to hit France and the UK this month. No timeline for the rest of the world beyond that. But Google taking it back and saying, hey, if you're not going to do it, we'll do it. And then maybe someday you'll do it. And then when you do it, then we'll say, okay, and we'll switch it over to you. But until then, that's how
Probably
Google rolls.
because it's tired of having to compete with Apple or just not be on level with what Apple users have at this point.
No, I don't think it's not anything to do with Apple. I think it's impatience for the carriers to move it forward and to be like, okay, well, to Jason's point, if you're not going to move it forward, we will, and kind of throws the gauntlet down at the carriers. I don't think this has nothing to do with Apple as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this has to do with the fact that we need to get off the antiquated SMS, MMS protocol across the board, and Google is leading the charge in this. Apple needs to catch up and the carriers need to catch up. That's what has to happen.
But I think overall,
why does
Flo,
Apple
your
need to
point
catch
is
up?
Right.
They have their own ecosystem that works for them that excludes us, and it's fine.
Wow. Yeah, and Ray, of all of us, you live half your life with an iPhone and half your life with an Android device. We are almost solely committed to Android. Me, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks out of the year, I'm on an iPhone.
Because they pay you to do it.
Yeah. Otherwise, heck no. But so you've experienced the ups and the downs of iMessage. What do you think?
I mean, I will definitely say iMessage lock-in is real, and it keeps a lot of people on the Apple platform, myself included. I just got my mom on iMessage, and she can't stand Android anymore. And
because of iMessage, like that's the
because
big.
of iMessage. I mean, there are so many features that iMessage has that RCS will get and will bring. Which is things like, richer multimedia, read receipts, those little bubbles when you're typing.
Typing indicator.
People care. Yeah, typing indicators. Like people care about this stuff. They're very small things that maybe like a lot of people might not think is a big deal, but on iMessage, it's a very big deal, and getting these people kind of onto this kind of modern texting system is going to be very key to competing, I think, with Apple. And I think that, one of the things that Pixel fails to do is, fails to have is a strong messaging platform.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it's not like there aren't apps on Android that don't offer all of those things that you mentioned. The big difference, of course, is that iMessage is ubiquitous across all iPhones. And you get an iPhone.
And Apple computers.
And Apple computers, right, yes. Right. Even further out into its ecosystem. And so you don't have to think about these things. You're just in the system. Not to mention iMessage is encrypted, end-to-end encrypted. RCS is not. And that's a really big downside to RCS.
It's funny because I actually, even if RCS was ubiquitous and replaced SMS and MMS, really the only value I would have is for messaging with people who aren't in an encrypted text, whether it's Telegram or Signal or WhatsApp or whatever one you're using that has some level of encryption or whatever it might be. I just think, I know I'm a broken record on this, but it just drives me crazy that I just feel like imagine if the email protocol was now proprietary and you could only email with people who also had Apples. Or you could only email people who are on Windows or whatever. Like the fact that we've allowed this messaging fragmentation to happen and to become, have people dig their heels in and have it be a differentiator between what kind of phone they get is ridiculous. Imagine if the phone system, like the old landline phone, you could only call someone if they were on AT&T too or not, or they used a Sony phone versus not. I find it fascinating that we allowed it to get this far when it should be a common universal, and I know this is a little Roddenberry future-esque of me and it's a little socialism and all that sort of stuff, but I just feel like messaging should be unified and common across every device and should not be a point of differentiation for brand competition or anything like that, just because it's at the heart of what we use these devices for.
Yeah. But it is ubiquitous. SMS. There's your ubiquitous solution, and everything else is like a different flavor or whatever.
Yeah, but it's not.
Apple's just done a really good job
iMessage.
It's a 30-year-old protocol. It's old. It's right up there with the beeper network. We for whatever happened, everybody had their eye on a different prize, and there wasn't a universe. It just gets me crazy. Look at what happened when USB came aboard, and all of a sudden peripherals worked on every computer, whether or not it was a PC or a Mac or a Linux or whatever. It was a universal serial bus, and look at what that did for it. This idea of a universal way of connecting people. It gets me so boiling when I think about it. And if RCS is a step in the right direction, and hopefully Apple takes their head out of their ass and stop but I know they won't, because it is a product differentiator. So
it's a huge.
Exactly.
Yeah, huge. Ray, you said it right there. It can be an app or something that completely, it's the ultimate buy-in, right?
Right.
And your mom has now experienced this. Does she have a lot of friends who are also on iPhones, I assume? And so it's like, whoa, the sun just came out. I suddenly see something very different.
No, she was on an old OnePlus X.
Okay.
And it was just getting too old. And she wanted FaceTime and she wanted an emoji. And all my sisters are also on iPhone. So it was just an easier solution.
Yeah.
So, yeah. A lot of the people that she talks to, they're in Asia, they're in Europe, her friends and family, they use iPhone, or they use Android mainly because of WhatsApp and WeChat,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see if this really changes things. Overall, it's probably good to keep in mind Google's version of RCS doesn't replace carrier SMS the way Google would hope the universal solution would have or will someday. So we're kind of right back where we started, right? Here's yet again Google's version of something that it really wants everybody to use. And if they have the Messages app installed, then they're going to use it. But how is that much similar than Allo? Well, right? Allo was kind of the same thing too.
That's not a fair comparison to Allo. I mean, like that's on an app level that you're hoping people will adopt and use. Where this is the protocol being used behind the scenes. You know, that people really don't have a choice. I mean, the average user should know about RCS.
No, it shouldn't.
Right. It should just work, and it shouldn't be a choice. It should just be the next major thing. So I don't know. I just find it, going back to Apple, I just find it fascinating and hysterical every time you think about how much Steve Jobs is rolling over in his grave at things like Animoji and these little bells and whistles crap, you know, and this, you know, when this is the guy that when people would hand him a keyboard to sign, he would pop off the F keys because he didn't think you actually needed them, right? Like a streamlined, frictionless, you know, no buttons kind of thing, and the amount of bloat that's been added to iMessage that people seemingly love, you know, Steve Jobs would just hate. So I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
I love when I get the so-and-so has reacted text message when I'm part of an iMessage.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Loved.
At least I'm included.
So-and-so loved, and then your entire message.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I got one of those today, in fact. This is not in any way news, but I felt like our hardware section already had a lot in it. So I thought I would show you. Remember a couple of weeks ago where I brought on my Motorola Zoom and I couldn't power it on because of the power supply?
You found it?
I got the power supply. I had it shipped to me. So now we can see the Motorola Zoom in all of its glory.
Wow. Oh, you changed the background, though.
So okay, so I booted it up and it had been wiped. So I was hoping that I would boot it up and it would be like whatever it was from years and years ago and everything.
Honeycombs. Yeah.
But so it's actually running Jelly Bean. So it's been upgraded from and it's a little bright. As you can see, it's lightning fast. Hold on.
Wow.
Hold on.
It wasn't even fast back in the day. Like back in the day, it was.
That's right. It's not even up there.
Snails crawl to do anything.
There you go, Jason, trying to show how slow it is, and it's not even the gesture.
It's not even
What's happening
now? Not even up there. What I'm trying to do is lower the brightness of the display, but I can't remember how to do it on this old thing.
It's happening so fast you can't see it.
Yeah.
You have to hit the lower left-hand corner to get to the
yeah.
app drawer.
So remember the app drawer on tablets back then was up here.
Oh, the upper right corner, yeah.
Upper right corner.
That zoom in thing. Oh man,
isn't that crazy?
Oh, look at that YouTube logo.
I know. These are all of the apps have now been updated.
Oh my God.
From then, except for the Play Store. The Play Store did update itself. When I first launched it, it was the big like color blocks on the side with the categories, and it looked horrible. I mean, this doesn't look much better, but anyways, it's
when you try to install something, does it say, "Are you serious?"
Play music. Yeah, right. No, it doesn't give me the option. Play music.
Oh,
if you remember.
Look at that. Look at the upper left-hand menu.
If you remember the recents category, which it sucks because the way it pulled in all the things that I've uploaded, and so it's like all me. So I promise I'm not that vain. But anyways, if you remember this, there we go.
Wait, that's you?
That's me, Thriller, Michael Jackson, Tinkerbell, and the Secret of I don't even know what half this stuff is. And
I think that's for your daughter.
Melon? Yeah, it must be. These must be audiobooks and stuff.
Audiobooks.
But anyways, do you remember this interface? Wasn't that?
Oh man,
it was supposed to be like Android's answer to Spotlight, or like what is going on iOS.
On iOS, yeah.
So, anyways,
this is
a little
hollow,
carousel.
Right? This is the hollow design.
Oh, this is total hollow era. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Settings pane.
What
familiar settings.
Android 4.1.2. Oh Lord, that was such a long time ago. I was such a different person back then.
Let's see here.
Ooh, Google Talk.
Google Talk. Yeah, we'll go ahead and launch Google
That's
Talk.
crazy.
I'm offline right now. I'm offline here.
Wait,
I'm going to sign in.
If I send you a message, will it work?
I doubt it. Status updates temporarily unavailable.
Oh. Connection interrupted.
This is fun. What else? A camera. Oh, the camera app. I got to remember where to get to my apps here.
What's the browser look
camera?
like?
If you remember, the camera app on the tablet had this big old
giant
navigation thing on the side. This is the front-facing camera quality. This is the rear-facing camera quality. For whatever reason, those things hide when you're in a camera. Anyways.
Now, remember, this was the era when people discovered that they could cart their tablets around and take pictures with them.
Yeah. Whether they should, that's a different question.
Well, we told them, but people are free to do as they please.
That's true. Anywho,
with Google.
Back
then it was with Google.
The old browser, the AOSP browser before that, you started seeing Chrome as a default install.
Ooh, touch on the Google Apps folder. I want to see the icons.
Yeah, the icons are fun. Let's see here. There you go. Got the old play music
calendar.
icon, the YouTube
so
icon.
Far,
now YouTube doesn't launch or it launches, but it doesn't give me anything. So they must have changed something on the back end that won't work until Play Services is updated or the app is updated. But and I linked my account and everything. This is all it gives me.
This is the bummer of having old devices around is just you can't really do much with them after the end date.
Yeah.
It's the same for Apple users
too.
Well, at least the Google Maps still works.
There's Google Maps.
It knows where you are.
It knows where I am. Yep. At least I can find my way around Petaluma.
Showing you traffic.
It knows where the beer is.
Exactly. It really wants me to know that Lagunitas is right around the corner. Anyways, I thought it was kind of fun. So if you didn't remember, it has an NVIDIA Tegra 2 T20, 1 gigahertz dual core processor. When you boot this up, it has this boot up animation that totally calls out the fact that it's dual core. It was really excited about the fact that it was dual core. So that was kind of cute. 1 gig of RAM might explain why things are really slow on it. 1280 by 800 display, 160 pixels per inch. Anyways, this is the Motorola Zoom, a flashback edition. There you go. I wish it had just the original ice cream sandwich on it. Yeah. Oh, there's a widget.
Yeah. Zoomed its way out of our hearts.
That's right. And zoomed off the table. So we can continue on with the show. Thanks for walking down memory lane with me.
Oh, I love going into the vault.
Yes, it is fun. I was looking at some of the other things in there, and most of them I don't think they even boot up. I think they've just glitched.
Here's the thing. I don't think the Motorola Zoom makes it into the Android Hall of Fame, but I feel like there's a rotating exhibit where we revisit historical devices, and the Motorola Zoom could be on display there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a special wing.
It gets an honorable mention.
Not Nexus 5 caliber.
Sure.
No, not even an honorable mention. It's just a rotating exhibit of oddities.
It's notable because it was the very first device, tablet device with Honeycomb, which was the first version of Android that was made for a tablet. So it's historical.
So this is what I'm envisioning. The Android Hall of Fame has an exhibit that is the history of Android, and it highlights the first tablet, things like that. But then you have the Hall of Fame room, which has got the devices that are minted in the Hall of Fame. So this is great. This is gonna be my life's work.
Yes, the Hall of Fame is all in gold. It's like a gold room. And
it's like if you ever been to the Baseball Hall of Fame, it's like the Baseball Hall of Fame is a great baseball museum, and then there's the hollowed room with all the plaques of the Hall of Famers.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. There we go.
Back when being in the Hall of Fame meant something.
So it'd be like the Mark McGuire.
Back when the Hall of Fame meant something.
Right.
That's the black.
I was waiting to see where we're going with that.
More like the Joe DiMaggio. Back when it meant something.
Burke just dropped off something that wouldn't make it into the Android Hall of Fame.
Or any Hall of Fame.
The BlackBerry tablet. What was this called?
Oh, God, I remember this tablet. I reviewed it for Ars Technica. It was
the Playbook.
The Playbook. Yeah.
Is it the Playbook?
And then they had a fire sale for $50.
Oh, it needs to be charged. Burke says it still works, but it's dead. You don't keep this always charged so that you can use it on the fly? Oh, he uses it every single day. That's why it's all run down.
Wow.
This does not run on Android, by the way.
Listen, they shut down BBM. What's the point? Just throw it out.
Yeah.
No BBM, no need for it.
I didn't actually throw it. Let's start with the rebranding, because I think that's kind of what's top of mind right now. Had a big announcement last week that basically the Android brand, the logo, I mean, some of it's a little subtle, but some of it's not quite as subtle. The big changes integrating the bug droid into the logo. I guess talk about the desire to rebrand. When did you start kind of hearing about this happening? What was the motivation behind it?
I think we probably started talking about it, let's say sometime last year. And for us, it's interesting. The Android brand came about not with a huge amount of thought, I would say, right? It was like a pretty rapid thing that came together early on, and we sort of did the minimum we could to sort of get started. That's actually like a theme of Android in general. Like, it's like, what's the simplest thing we can do to get started? And then it's like continual improvement after that. And we've tried to sort of live that on the Android platform itself and the product. And branding is it's the same thing with branding. It's like continual improvement, except that we haven't actually done much improvement. So we decided we would invest some time in it. And part of it was just also we were really sort of thinking about where we are 10 years in. 10 plus years in, how big Android's got, and we wanted to make sure it was globally relevant. And we were starting to get feedback that a lot of the dessert names are not globally, relatable. So, Android Pie is awesome. And of course, as many people know, we name our releases after desserts in alphabetical order. But Android Pie is, while it's a dessert in some countries, it's not a dessert in other countries. And so we were like, yeah, it wasn't perfect. And then we were starting to think about Q and all the different names we could come up with for desserts in Q, and they tend to be a little bit more exotic. What we were coming
just
up with,
a little bit, yeah.
And and it just kind of reminded us, it was like, well, what's a good name that's globally relatable? And we were like, this is kind of hard. And that sort of kind of started off the discussion. One thing I just actually want to debunk is that there was a rumor that Q was too hard to name, so we came up with numbers. But I want to point out that left to my own devices, I would have called this thing Queen Cake. And I think Queen Cake is like a really good name. Like, I think it's like up there with honeycomb or lollipop or marshmallow.
Okay.
That's the Mardi Gras cake, correct?
Mardi Gras cake.
Yeah, with a little baby inside of it, right?
Queen Cake.
I thought it was King Cake. Is that?
Well,
I mean, there should be a spectrum of these cakes, but I just hadn't heard it called a.
I saw a picture of a Queen Cake and it looks really tasty. And it sounds good.
I know. A Google search for Queen Cake surfaces a Queen Elizabeth cake. A Queen Cake with whipped cream and jam filling recipe. I mean, honestly, on this show, we went through the gamut over the last couple of months of what possible Q desserts could be. I'm not sure we ever narrowed in on Queen Cake.
No.
That's a big missing
We forgot about
piece
that
of the
one.
puzzle.
Whoopsie.
I know, and I also think it's kind of. I think it would have been really good. Anyway, so I just want to debunk it. That was we had a good contender.
We had a deep bench.
We
had
did
lots of options.
We did a lot of options.
You needed a deep bench on the letter Q.
But we wanted to come up with something that was that worked in all countries. Like Android's got so big, it's a global platform, and we wanted something that worked everywhere. And then we started thinking about numbers, and we're like, wow, numbers are cool. You can add them and you can subtract them and invert them. And
they're really flexible.
And the other thing that numbers do, which I think is an understated benefit, is they encode sequence information. So you can actually compare one number to another and see which one's later or not. Because people got confused. They were like, is lollipop newer than marshmallow? I don't know. And so I'm being facetious, but I think numbers are just more universal. They make a lot more sense. So
yeah.
One thing we are doing, though, is we will continue to use desserts as code names internally. And that was kind of important for our engineering team and our product teams. Just we like having fun with
that was going to be my question.
Yeah.
We have to call it something.
We have to call it something.
Wait, so internally, what is 10? Can you share that?
Queen Cake, right?
It was QT.
Quinstart.
QT.
Quinstart, yes. We asked because some of us have a bet and we need some of us need to pay out. So we're trying to make money off of this endeavor.
Yeah,
thank you.
I mean, our source code branch is called Qt Dev.
That's right. If you look in AOSP, you can see all of the other names of the various branches that we've used as development branches. You go back in time and you see things like MNC. MNC is not an abbreviation of marshmallow. Cookie. It's a macadamia nut cookie. Right. We've always had the code name ever since, I guess, KitKat. We've had the code name for the code name.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep having the code name for the code name. We just won't have the code name.
Correct.
So it's a code name for the number, basically. So but so here's the question then: as you progress, will the next one be R? Will you continue the alphabet, or now is just you can just be anything that you fancy?
Oh, no, we're definitely going to keep the lexicographic sorting. I think that's really important. I was just talking to Diane about it a little earlier about what we would name that the future branches.
Oh, yeah. We can't really sell this.
No.
Is that secret? Are codenames secret now? I don't know. Or do we tell people?
I think what we've done is we've taken the whole dessert idea and given it back to like the true super fans, the way that it was before we started actually making it part of our overall branding exercise. Like back in the Eclair days, like I don't think we ever got out there and said, Nexus 1 now with Eclair. Like that was just an internal thing. And so now we're back to that being for the listeners to this podcast.
Greg writes in, I love this, Greg, by the way. He says, was just watching the original pilot of Star Trek, the episode called The Cage, and just noticed something that blew my mind. In the opening sequence, Spock uses a gesture control exactly like the contemplated Project Soli. He waves his hand in the air to advance a screen. I'm certainly not the first to notice, but in case it has never been sent to you, I thought I'd pass it along. So if anyone tries to patent a la swipe to unlock, there's prior art for technology-based gesture controls. And listen, Greg, you are absolutely right. I've long time on this show talked about how I long to live in the Star Trek future, and Gene Roddenberry and the rest of the folks at Star Trek in the 60s really, from the tricorder, which is a handheld device that gave us information, to these very aggressive gestures to move things along. They really had a good vision of what things would be like in 50 years. So Star Trek's where it's at, man.
Holy cow! No, that's legit. It's directly that kind of gesture.
Yeah.
Man.
Move along.
Yep.
Yes. So intuitive even in the 1960s.
Clearly, somebody at Google saw this episode and thought to themselves, I need to put this into real life.
And yet the screen he's pointing at is clearly a projection.
Yes.
And additionally, at the nav controls, they had dials for numbers instead of digital readout. But they were so
2,
close.
3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Yes.
Although the remastered episodes, I don't know if you've seen these, but they went through and took any special effects shots and modernized them. So they have the original episodes filmed, but all the effects are were done recently. So it's beautiful shots of the ship in space, and they switch things to look like actual computers. And it's, I don't know, if you're not a purist, it's a fun way to watch Star Trek.
But does it kind of take away from the quality?
No, because the overacting is still there and the costumes are still there.
Okay.
It just
the melodrama hasn't been touched at all.
Okay, good. Because it reminds me of the re-releases of Star Wars.
That's because of Jar Jar Binks. It's fine.
No,
they
but
didn't do that to Star Trek.
These are done in the best possible way. They didn't add anything. They just improved what was already there. That's the subtle difference. They didn't.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. It was done tastefully.
So to derail this conversation for just a second, it's not like what George Lucas does, where he's radically changing the structure of a scene through CG. It's like we're taking the model photography and it's kind of cleaned up, and there's probably a bit of a CG sort of layer to make it look a little prettier, but it's still largely the same model style shot that you would have had. It's not like the Enterprise is suddenly doing loop-de-loops and all these combat maneuvers.
Right.
It's
or nobody burps or farts or anything like Lucas put into Star Wars, and there's no re-architecting of scenes based with CG, and no, it's just nice cutaways and things like that.
Yeah. And it blends in really well with the actual photography. It's not like Lucas did a remaster of THX 1138 where this really low budget student sci-fi film suddenly has this over the top high speed futuristic car chase, which doesn't look like anything else in the movie and completely takes you out of the fantasy he's created. As much as I am a purist for Star Trek and I love like how cheesy those old model photography shots were, this was handled with a lot more care and attention to keeping from distracting you.
Good.
When you're going through these new episodes.
That speaks volumes right there.
Yeah.
Because initially I hesitated, but all right, cool. Well, thank you for sending that along, Greg. I've learned something.
That was awesome.
After striking first, striking hard with no mercy. After Apple struck hard, struck first.
What are you doing, man?
Wow.
Oh, man.
You can't do that.
I gotta do it.
That was
really
one of
messed up.
Victor's most epic fails.
Victor, do it again.
Yeah,
Do it again. I endorse. Do it again.
I don't know. Sometimes I think the failures are the drop.
Oh, they are.
What it is.
They are.
I think that has to be it, Victor.
Sorry, I had a good one.
Do you want another take?
Yeah, sure. Okay,
it's up
let
to
me
you.
do another
Go
take.
for it.
Redeem yourself.
After Apple struck first, struck hard with no mercy, this slew of rumors from Pixel is the training montage. I was watching a lot of Cobra Kai over the weekend.
You listen. I acknowledge the greatness that is Cobra Kai. You had it in the first line.
I know. I need more training.
You got thrown out at third base, man. You couldn't make it.
It's okay, Victor.
Yeah, I needed more training.
Hello and welcome to All About Android episode 439, recorded on Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. Your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
Oh my goodness. Ah, jeez. It just...
Victor. Wow.
Thank you. I'm stunned. Audio listeners are like, I have no idea what's going on. People are just laughing.
Oh, Victor just ultimately trolled Ron.
Yes.
To the extreme, and it's so good. Please log on to YouTube and see the video.
Ron is done with the show now.
I knew Ron was excited that Mateo was coming back.
Ron has left the building. That's what happens when you decorate Ron's camera with nothing but a bunch of goats.
That was really good. Oh, that was really good, Victor.
All right, we want Ron on for the show, so that's it, Ron.
Oh my gosh,
you're
was
free.
so good. Hi, I'm Florence Ion.
Do we need to refer Victor to my talent contract that limits the number of surprise goats I have to deal with on a show?
Yeah, we've kind of reached a new point with this whole goat thing. Now it's like it's permeated beyond just the show, and it's moving into like the individual hosts. Your whole goat thing, Mateo, like what? Did you ever imagine that it would take on a life of its own?
No, I didn't. And I really have to thank All About Android and Phil Nickinson, because it's all Phil's fault. He brought Slack to the App Arena. I couldn't beat Slack unless I brought the ultimate game, Goat Simulator.
Right, that was a big deal at the time.
That's what started it all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In 2014, Slack was really hot.
Yeah.
And so I brought Goat Simulator, and that just escalated.
Yeah,
it was, I think, the only time, or one of two times I've been in the studio with Ron.
You do realize that you didn't have to follow Goat Simulator up with another goat game, though, right? Like,
I didn't.
You could have just like...
Let him have a bit.
Okay, all right.
I made a conscious choice, and I think I was backed up by the chat room.
Yeah, no, you know what? The poll results kind of speak for themselves. You've done really well with this whole thing.
Oh my gosh. Victor, thank you for that laugh, by the way. That hearty laugh, I think, I'm setting a good pace for today's show. I mean, sorry you got trolled, Ron. Yeah. But it was for the, it was for the lulz.
It was definitely worth it. Thank you for the welcome back, Ron and Victor.
I don't know. Ron, you might have made up your mind about Victor in this episode. It really seems like
it's really not a good foot to start on, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, you tore everything down already, man.
I'm just not convinced that there aren't more surprises lined up. So I'm just going to, I know nothing, thankfully. I didn't know that was going to happen. But I do know Victor. And I know that Victor is crafty like that. So we'll see what happens.
Well, you see, the thing is, I feel this counterbalances his epic Android news fail from last week.
Oh, sure.
I had to make
It's
up
like
for that.
sometimes Victor's up, sometimes Victor's down. And we just were along for the ride.
Yes. Victor's a little like Bitcoin, really.
Oh. Yeah, it's a little bit.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if Victor should appreciate that.
Well, I mean, sometimes
you're
Bitcoin's
trading
doing
on all
awesome.
of the markets, Victor. All of the markets.
Victor, we love you. Keep being you.
Please. Hello, everyone, and welcome to All About Android. This is episode number 449, recorded live on December 3rd, 2019. We are your source for all of the news, the hardware, and the apps that you need to know. For you Android faithful, I'm Florence Ion.
And I'm Ron Richards, and I was not ready for you to improvise the script.
No, I was not, but my brain... I started to think about something else, and then
in the middle of doing the intro to the show,
I couldn't help it. My brain sometimes has a mind of its own.
Well, I don't blame you, because once again, Jason, our dear beloved Jason Howell, is still on vacation. In fact, today's his last day of vacation. He's actually en route back to California, but didn't make it back in time to do the show. So it's just you and me, Flo, again. But we are joined by a series regular, Mr. Matteo Doni. Welcome back, Matteo.
Welcome back, Matteo.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me back on All About Android with our friend sitting next to you, Ron.
I'm doing my best to ignore that. So, Matteo, if we can get your full shot, Victor, where are you broadcasting from?
So I am broadcasting from my employer's office in Shenzhen, China. Where I came to clarify some terminology from last time I was on All About Android. We were discussing shiny Chinese phones, such as the Honor 9X, the Huawei P30 Pro, and so on. They're very shiny, So I thought,
And
let's go
fingerprinty, apparently.
and fingerprinty, yes, fingerprint magnets. So I decided to come along and clarify the terminology. Is it acceptable to say Chinese phones?
We're still having
And
this
apparently
debate.
it is.
It's still not okay to say Chinese phones. it's just not.
Is that because there's a potential issue with the name of the dog breed, the Chinese dog?
There is a link in the doc that links to a Chinese dog.
Oh, jeez.
Its lifespan is 12 to 15 years. It weighs no more than 16 pounds. It's best suited for families with kids and other pets and first-time dog owners. It's comparable to the Pekingese and the Shih Tzu. Oh, yes. Okay, I think Chinese is Shih Tzu and Pekingese bred together. This is not a dog breed show, okay? This is all about Android, not all about...
Exactly. In the context of all about Android, we'll talk about the shiny Chinese phones.
Not much is going on in the RonXO feed. You can go to Instagram.com/RonXO, or I'm on Twitter @RonXO. But I've been very, very busy. New York Comic Con is this weekend, so I'm a tired man. I played some Guardians of the Galaxy pinball last week while I was in Los Angeles, and I got my initials up, so that was pretty cool.
Nice.
That's my latest accomplishment right there on the old Instagram. I got the 4th highest score. It was fun. 219 million.
And you're the only Ron playing pinball out there.
What's great is that you put up your three initials, and and I just do Ron, so I benefit. It works in my favor.
Absolutely.
So.
Right on, Ron.
Ron, I just want to share that I was at a pin or a video game themed restaurant in LA on Friday, and they had that exact Guardians of the Galaxy pinball machine.
What?
And
was it Button Mash?
Yes.
I was there on Friday. What time?
In LA?
Yes. What time were you there?
I was there at 7 p.m.
I was literally there.
Shut up!
I was literally there from.
You were in LA?
I could show you the Uber.
How did I not piece that together in my mind? Because I saw your Instagram.
Were we literally in the same restaurant and didn't see each other.
Are you serious? I was eating dinner for 2 hours there.
Well, I was there until I left for the airport for the red eye. I left at like 9.
Oh my God.
I sat at the bar by myself and I ate my garlic noodles while I was reading my phone, and then I played pinball for an hour.
You guys are so linked. Like in this world, you are so. I mean,
but we don't know. It just happens.
It's just so funny.
I did not piece that together, and I was like, "Oh, the Guardians! I saw that tonight while I was at Button Mash."
You cannot make this up. We were literally in the same building. I haven't seen you in person for like a year almost. And we're in the same building, and we don't.
But how was your dinner?
It has really good food.
Lovely.
That's why you eat there.
Yeah, that's why I went. Yeah, so it's like I
oh
can
my
get dinner.
God, that is.
Yeah, my meetings finished. My meetings finished at like 6:30, and I went to Button
Yeah,
Mash
I
before
sat
the
down to
airport.
eat at 7:30. I got there at 7, and I was at the
where
bar
were
drinking
you?
horchata.
Where in the were you sitting along the window, or
I was sitting along the window in a booth.
I was literally, when you walked into where you check in, I was at the first seat in the bar next to the check-in spot.
I didn't think to look for you. Maybe that I was with my friend.
I had my Mets hat on.
You had your Mets hat on, and I didn't.
Yeah.
He was sitting there repeatedly saying, "Holy cow, holy cow."
This is unbelievable.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I'm
On that
verklempt.
note, okay. That's amazing.
Thank you, everyone,
surprise.
for witnessing that.
Wow.
And they share a birthday, by the way, folks.
Yes.
So
It's weird. It's getting weird.
it's really just kind of weird. And they have a thing with 90210. It's just the
I feel
parallels
bad
are
now. I
really
wish I would have seen Ron. I could have given him a hug in person. Like,
Oh, that's such a missed opportunity. I'm
telling
sorry.
me.
I know, that's such a bummer. That really is.
I mean, I wouldn't think to look for you in LA, Flo, nor would you think to look for me.
That
in
is
LA.
so bizarre. That is so weird.
So weird.
So I have to say on that very last clip, I knew as we were in the middle of that moment that would be like the ending clip of the best of. It was just too weird that Flo and Ron had that experience. Also very like normal in a strange way. Anyone that watches this show knows that Ron and Flo have a very interesting kind of like interconnected like energy between them. Like their lives are interconnected in strange ways. They share the same birthday. They end up in the same restaurant in a different city than they live at the same time and never see each other. Weird stuff like that always happens to Ron and Flo. So I knew in that moment that we had to include that. Victor, thanks so much for editing all this together. Appreciate all your work throughout the course of this year. You're awesome, and I love your news bumpers. Thank you for all you do, man.
No problem, man. It's a blast.
Well, it's always great to have you behind the board and everybody else that helps when you're out, but it's just not quite the same. But that is it for this week. Next week, we do return with a normal episode, our first episode of 2020. So you can check it out live. Every Tuesday we record live at 5 p.m. Pacific. But you're probably going to want to subscribe anyways. And that's what we encourage you to do so that you don't miss anything. twit.tv/AAA. So be subscribed and you won't miss this, next, or any episode throughout the course of 2020. There it is, twit.tv/AAA. But that is it for 2019. Happy New Year, everybody. And we'll see you next year, which is really just 7 days away for the next episode of All About Android. Bye, everybody.